We all have to have money to live. It's just our system. And as we all have learned with social media, advertising, and all of that, there's kind of a dopamine rush that comes from that.
If you're really going to add value 10 years from now in any career, the way to do that is niche.
Not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur.
Is too many people become an entrepreneur because they want the freedom and the time, but they don't realize that doesn't necessarily mean freedom and time all the time.
You cannot build a business and start something from scratch without putting a lot of time and effort into it.
I'm just talking about what are the prioritizations that you need to hyper focus on.
You probably work with a lot of very wealthy people that have had wealth, and it's a whole different ballgame. I work with middle of America.
If you could go back and give your younger self financial advice, what would it be? Welcome to PlanAssist Podcast, where we help people make better financial decisions and build the process around three core principles: have a plan, be diversified, seek counsel. And then we do this podcast with people who are experts in specific fields that can help you make better financial decisions or have been really successful in a particular field. And we start every podcast off with the same exact question is if you could go back and give your younger self financial advice, what would it be? Today, we're joined by Candace Sonne. She's a founder and a partner of JC Castle Accounting and Tax. Candace brings more than 30 years experience helping small business owners simplify their accounting, improve profitability, and regain control of their time. She's based in Fort Myers, Florida. Her team serves clients nationwide through technology. Candace's passion comes from personal experience. She started and owns several businesses herself. She understands firsthand the challenges that entrepreneurs face when it comes to cash flow, taxes, and bookkeeping. Her mission is to help you keep it simple. That's very, very similar to what we try to do here at PlanAssist. So today I'm super excited to welcome Candace on board. Did I miss anything that you wanted to add, Candace?
No, Tim, that was perfect. Absolutely
okay, awesome. So as you know, when you and I went back and forth, we always start these podcasts off with the same question. If you could go back and give your younger self financial advice, what would it be?
Well, I thought a lot about this question, and I wanted to bring you some different answers than you probably typically get. So the first one, I think, is when you're young, think about the fact that you're being advertised constantly to look like this, spend money on this, and have this. And as we all have learned with social media, advertising, and all of that, there's kind of a dopamine rush that comes from that. But what you may not have experienced when you're young is the dopamine rush, the good feelings, the peace, the opportunity. If you don't spend on those things, that you won't have a week from now, a month from now, or 10 years from now, and save your money. That feeling is better than any, just momentary dopamine rush. And if you can learn that lesson when you're young, I didn't learn it when I was young. So I think of all the things that I thought I had to have. Back in my day, it was keep up with the Joneses. Mm-hmm. And, none of that means anything today. What I have found in all my years is you get the most, feeling of safety or security from having saved, from having the security of knowing that if you have an emergency or you have a need, it's there, or an opportunity. Many opportunities missed when you don't save. So that would be number one.
Okay, good.
Number two is from the book, The Tipping Point. And he talks in there about becoming an expert at something, putting in your 10,000 hours. So why does this matter in terms of your financial security and that type of thing? What I've found, just working with so many different businesses over the years. So we serve small businesses. I hear every kind of business idea you can imagine. People do amazing things. It's so exciting to see it. And what I notice is there's people who have really niched down their expertise. They found some place that they can be an expert at. And those are the people, whether it's a small business or even if you're working as in a career, and you just start niching down your experience, and you become more valuable and more valuable. For instance, my brother-in-law, who I love, been married to my sister for 40 years, he became a calibrator. He was in the Navy, all the things you can do. He just became an expert at calibrating machinery. Then when he got out, he got into the pharmaceutical field, and he was in high demand because he really understood this thing that there's just not a lot of.
Yeah, real nichey.
Real nichey. That will take you a long way to enabling you to make a lot more money in your career, which would then help you save. And then the third thing is, just because I have a heart for entrepreneurship, and I really believe not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur, and having a career in government or in corporate world or whatever can be great. But if you can become an entrepreneur, you have so much more control over your income, how fast you make income. You can create new revenue streams. But one of the most beautiful things about it is finding balance in your life. A lot of people think, well, entrepreneurs just work, 24/7, but it's really not true. They have a lot of freedom in deciding, I'm going to my kid's soccer game. I'm going to be a PTA mom. I'm going to have a baby, and maybe I might have somebody in the home helping me, but I'll be there when I'm needed. So it just gives you a lot of opportunity for freedom. And it gives an awful lot of opportunity for growth, because you have to learn to sell, and you have to learn to manage, and all those skills that are great in life. So those would be my three things I wish my 20-year-old self knew.
Those are good ones. Those are really good points. To kind of expand on the entrepreneur one a little bit, and then we can touch on each one of those. We can spend the whole podcast. Those are such good points. We can just spend the whole podcast kind of going back and visiting them. But on the entrepreneur one, the one thing that I do see regularly is too many people become an entrepreneur because they want the freedom and the time, but they don't realize that that doesn't necessarily mean freedom and time all the time. In the beginning, you have to spend the time to build that business, so it's kind of got a two-edged sword to being an entrepreneur, and you have to learn to do kind of all of it. So I think too many people do become entrepreneurs thinking it's going to give them lots of freedom and time. And the answer is it does give them freedom and time, but there has to be that initial investment to make it successful.
And the truth is, if they don't put that in, they're not going to succeed.
That's correct. And you and I both know that, because both of us have small businesses where
Right.
now I do have time. I do have somewhat control. If someone looks at my life, I look like I don't work very many hours, but they didn't see the 60 hours a week 10 years ago.
Yep, that's exactly right. And even myself, I experienced it building this accounting firm. I would say the first 4 to 5 years, I worked
Right.
I was always on. And there was times I felt very overwhelmed about it. And even times when I had to neglect my family. I mean, my kids are grown, and it was maybe I couldn't show up for something for the grandkids, but I had a goal and I had a dream, and I knew I was building my company to get to a point where I could work less. And I'm also enjoying the fruits of that this year for the first time. But I can tell you this, I have talked to so many business owners. They all know they have to work hard. And the ones that I've met that don't do that, they're not around 6 months later, because you cannot build a business and start something from scratch without putting a lot of time and effort into it.
Correct. And that's where, as I kind of kick this off, that's where I think have a plan, be diversified, seek counsel. To have a plan, a lot of people misunderstand what I'm saying when I say have a plan. So a lot of people think of that as a bad word, and partially because of the industry. We're the ones that made it a bad word, because back in the 90s and early 2000s, the big insurance companies went out and hired tens of thousands of people, and they told them to go out and tell all these kind of neophytes, people who really didn't know what they were doing, that they would do a financial plan for them. But what people realized very quickly is the financial plan wasn't to really help the person make long-term decisions, what's next, prioritize how to make decisions. It actually was part of a sales process. So if you went to pick the insurance company early 2000, they would say, I'll do a financial plan. They'd give you this really long 45-page document that would accumulate all this stuff. But then in the end, what they basically did was sell you life insurance. Okay.
Right.
It really didn't help you with your financial situation. Now, what I mean by a plan, so the reason I kind of bring that up when we're talking about an entrepreneur or a young person trying to get out of debt, I'm just talking about what are the prioritizations that you need to hyper focus on. So increase your 401k contributions, pay off this credit card because it's a high credit card debt. Yeah, you may have that 45-page document, but it becomes more like a reference document. And as you're building your as an entrepreneur, you're building your business, you need a big document, just like you would if you were building a house. The architect will put together the blueprints. But once you start building that house, you will hyper focus on one page of a 40-page blueprint, right? Today, we're going to get the foundation in. We're going to get the windows in, whatever it is you're doing. And that's what I talk about when I say a plan. And the reason I kind of spent so much time kind of laying that foundation out is as an entrepreneur, you have to have some kind of a plan and some kind of a hyper focus on here's the 5 things I'm going to do this week, this month, this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, when we met, a couple of weeks ago, you and I had a conversation, and I was talking about, you probably work with a lot of very wealthy people that have had wealth, and it's a whole different ballgame. I work with middle of America. That's what I work with most of the time, who have a lot of opportunity to invest money and build plans. But when you haven't had that experience, I was sharing with you, if I have so many people, they go to a wealth manager, but they're not inspired. And I was telling you, like, you have to be a dream maker, right?
Yeah.
You have to get people to say, what are your dreams? What do you want to do? Because if you don't do that, if you just say you should be saving, you should be paying off your credit cards, you should be putting money in a 401k. This is not inspirational. It's not for most people.
No, correct. I agree 100%.
If they come to me or they come to you and I say to them, when I'm talking to them about their business, or if you're talking about your future, right? You say, what do you want your future to be like? When you get to retirement age, what do you want to do? Do you want to have a home in 2 places? Do you want to travel the world? Let me help you get to that dream by meeting these goals. Here are the goals that we're going to put in the plan. It's a plan, right? And the goal steps we're going to get. And there's a reason for it. The reason is to meet your dream and your goal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you just say you should be doing this, or you have to do this, you find a lot of people kind of get off the path. They're walking through it because it's not easy in the beginning, right? When you first start saving and you first start investing, and you're 30 and 50 and 60 sounds like forever, right? You can get lost along that path. But if you've instilled and gotten them to dream about what they want that to be, and every time I do this, I'm one step closer.
Right.
It can be really helpful. Really helpful.
I totally agree. I think that's exactly right. And I think that's one of the key things that both you have to do as the accountant and I have to do as the financial advisor, is help people keep hope, right? And kind of where do they want to go? But I want to kind of come back to your 3 points that are awesome. Is the first point you made is another thing I just want to drill into a little bit and spend a little bit of time talking about, is what a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds don't quite understand when they get student loans, or they go in debt, or they buy that car that has, an $800 car payment or a $600 car payment, is that in and of itself is one part of their financial strategy or plan, et cetera, and they have to do it. But what it does is it limits opportunity, which you hit on. And they don't understand that. Like, there were opportunities that I couldn't take advantage of because I had X number of debt, I had payments I had to make. And friends of mine took advantage of it because they didn't have that debt. And I can't reiterate what you kind of finished that first point on enough, because people that have debt can't necessarily do things that people that don't have debt do that can make a huge difference in their lives from a financial perspective.
That is so true. And I can tell you, I don't think any of us that are older can not look back, or
Yeah.
most of us, and say, there were great things I could have done had I been more financially responsible. And there's so many things that go into that. When you're young and you're starting out in your 20s and 30s, you're so much better off if not only are you building your skills and you're getting your education and you're niching down what you want to do, but your network. Who are you networking with? People need to understand their money, and what compounding is and what it does for you and what vehicles to save in. You have to educate yourself about it. It's something that you need. It's such a basic thing. All of us, every single day, it matters what we do. And part of that is networking with wealth managers. Maybe joining a mastermind about investing.
Yeah.
I know so many people are doing that now. I mean, groups are popping up all over social media saying, hey, all us women are going to invest in real estate, or everybody's going to do this or this. And you get in there and maybe you don't do anything with them, but you educate yourself and you learn, right? And that's all part of making the plan. And so many people I talk to, I will ask them, we spend so much time trying to have perfect books for them, a beautiful balance sheet, a P&L that's actually correct. And they never look at it. And I'll say, do you know if you're making money in your business? Well, my bank balance on my phone says this. So I guess I'm okay. It's in the green. It's not in the red. People have situations in their business where they aren't making as much net profit as they want to. And I'll say, well, do you know why? Well, I probably spending too much. And then I'll go through their spending. I'll look through their P&L. I say, no, actually, you're being very conservative. You just need to raise your prices. I mean, there's so many valuable tools in all of these things I'm talking about to get yourself where you need to be.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, I have a saying that I share, and I actually have it on my plaque behind me, is financial success, financial well-being is not an event, okay? It's the accumulation of all the decisions someone's made over decades. And so any one single decision that they make isn't typically that important, but if you add up all those decisions over the course of a decade, it really makes a huge difference. And one of them is that understanding that opportunity doesn't come with an income necessarily. So that person who has to change jobs and make $150,000 a year versus the person who can change jobs and look at the opportunity might make 75,000, but will get equity in a particular company, then the latter is probably more valuable long-term than the one that gets $150,000. And that's just a really hard concept for our younger people to understand, and older people who aren't kind of self-aware, I guess, is they just can't kind of come to grips with that. So it's not just a younger person's issue, but it's 100% of the time the issue, right? It's not income. Like, I'm sure you work with businesses that the owners don't pay themselves that much money, but they make enormous amounts of equity or net worth growth in their businesses.
Right. And that's one thing. Sometimes somebody will come to me and they'll say, oh, I've spent so much time and money over the 10 years building my business and I didn't save. And I said, well, in a way you have, because if you're building something you can sell, it's got every time you increase it, but you have to be thinking about that. You cannot just assume. For instance, when people come to me, they haven't done their books in years. They're late on their taxes. They're not planning, to your word. Okay. But let's say they're not creating the dream of, I want to sell this one day. Or I just wanted to keep going on with my management team, and I'm out golfing, and it's still going on and I'm still making an income. But in order to do that, you have to run your business professionally. Okay. Because I've had so many people say, oh, somebody wants to buy my business, but they want to see my financials. And then they come to me. Well, I haven't done them in 4 years. I haven't done my tax return.
That's right.
And this person, they're going to lose out on this great deal because they didn't do what they needed to do. But, I think it's interesting. You think about it. We all have to have money to live. It's just our system, right? We cannot function without it. And it's so interesting to me that kids are coming up through school. We don't teach it to them. We don't.
It's terrible.
And it's not even just that, but parents also keep their finances to themselves. It's not something they feel like it's private and we don't share it with our kids. I'm not saying all. I think there might be a very small percentage out there of parents who teach their kids the lessons, right? But for the most part, people finish college or they move out of the house and they go to get their lives started and they have no information that we're talking about.
Right.
They don't understand investing. They don't understand compounding. They don't understand that the choices you make in your career should be calculated. You should be really thinking about, is this a smart move for where I want to get?
Yeah, exactly.
And I can say I'm one of those people. If I look back over my career, I did so many things those first 20 years. I was all over the place. But I learned a lot, which helped me to be able to start a business because I had done so many different roles. But had I stayed in the corporate world, I had scattered myself. I hadn't niched myself in,
Yeah, most of us do that though. The niche part has always been important, but with AI and technology, I agree 100% with you on it's going to become more important. The niching's always been something, but if you're really going to add value 10 years from now in any career, the way to do that is niche, is be hyper focused and super in the top 1% of it, whatever that niche is. And then you probably have a decent income. But I will say the one thing that you talked about selling your business, I did a podcast with an M&A broker down in South Florida. And one of the things that he said that made so much sense is he says, any business that gets started, you should always build it as though you're selling it because you'll constantly be asking the right questions if you're planning on selling it. You'll be talking to your tax person about selling it, even if you're not selling it. Right? If you have no plans on selling it, if you think about what are the things I need to do to sell it, and what are some of those things that are important, I can't reemphasize that. When he said that, I couldn't agree 100%. In fact, one of the things that I did, and I told him this on the podcast, is I spent 10 years at Charles Schwab and Company, and I was in my younger days where I was trying to grow in the corporate. So how do I become branch manager and regional manager and kind of go up? And I actually hired a executive coach to help me with that decision. And one of the things that he told me to do is he says, Tim, stop playing the corporate game. Stop it. He goes, you can't control what your bosses think. You can control what you can do and hype and focus on that. And then he said, think about if you were applying for the next level up at Fidelity, which was our biggest competitor, right? So Charles Schwab and Fidelity. Go on their sites and look at what are the skill sets that Fidelity wants you to have. What's the background? What's the experience that they want you to have? And then you focus on those skill sets as though you're going to apply for a job at Fidelity in a year. And he goes, what will happen? And it did. He said, what will happen is Schwab will automatically recognize that and you'll automatically just end up getting promoted and moving through the process. So I never did go to work at Fidelity, but I kept a really focus on what I would need to do if I went to work over there or wanted to get a job there. And I think the same thing's true with a business. I think it's absolutely true. I think, okay, if I want to sell my business, what does this business need to look like? What's my database need to look like? What's my balance sheet need to look like? What's my books need to look like, right?
Yep. As a matter of fact, this is where my business partner's been so valuable to me. We actually read 2 books this year about that very thing. One of them was Cody Brown's book. If you haven't seen her, look her up. She's amazing. And I can't remember, I don't have the names of the books at the top of my head, but they were about that exact thing. It doesn't mean you're going to sell now. But one thing my partner told me in the very beginning, he saw when we were building the business, he sees everybody wants to talk to me. Everybody wants to see Candace. Everybody wants to talk to Candace. I'm the one out there. And that can be a detriment if you're thinking about selling, because you don't want your whole business to just be about you, right?
No, right. It needs to be about client experience.
And that you have a great team.
Yes.
That can also talk to them and meet their needs. So at first I was like, I'd always been by myself, and I was like, this is how I do it, right? I learned first place you burn out when it's all about you, but also you don't allow your team to shine. And then you also create a business that once you're gone, the business it loses half its value. So I really focus on building a great team and keeping all my books really tight, my taxes really, everything that somebody would need. And we have systems that make sense, right? What if you have no systems? I mean, I have people come to me, they've been in business 10 years and they're still handwriting up invoices to their clients when they get to their house. You know what I mean? I mean, this is still going on with some people.
Yeah, I believe it.
So, I mean, not a lot, but it's still there. So it's just making systems that work and that makes it more sellable,
So that's awesome. So let's go to the last as a finishing up question and kind of closing out here is the seeking counsel part. So I talked about having a plan, being diversified, which is kind of a subject on in itself, and part of a business. So if you own a business, you're going to be concentrated for a period, but at some point you need to start focusing on how do you get more diversity in your financial life. But today, what I wanted to kind of finish today on is that seeking counsel. And what I mean by seeking counsel, I'm not talking about sitting down with someone and them selling you something. That is not what I mean by seeking counsel, because I get feedback from people who say, I don't like to seek counsel. What I mean by seek counsel is get input from a variety of sources. And the bigger the financial decision, the more input you should be getting. And what you're looking for when you're getting input is what's best case scenario on that financial decision? What's worst case scenario on that financial decision? And then what's likely case scenario? And then you start interviewing people that are experts or knowledgeable about something. And at some point you go from having formal advice, i.e. you pay for it, to informal advice. And it's fine to have both, but you understand the difference. What's your experience with the whole seeking counsel piece because people finally, they might want to do their taxes themselves, and then they show up in your office 5 years later, and it's just a mess. You got to go in and refile taxes, or they make decisions where had you called me, I probably would have gave you a different opinion. Even if they don't follow our opinions, sometimes just calling us will help them get pointed in the right direction, I guess. So I'll kind of stop there and see what your opinion and experience is around that.
I really think what you have to think about is relationship. When you wait until you have an emergency or money to invest, you got a big, settlement, or, you made a bunch of money and now you want to invest. And now you're out there looking for somebody, but you really don't know anything about them. We know people.
That's a good point.
By relationship. And relationships take time. You can meet somebody and be so impressed with them. Think they're smart, you've heard them speak, you had a conversation and it was good, but you don't know them over the long haul, over the distance. What's their ethics? How are they out in the community? Do you build a relationship with them, especially somebody that's dealing with your money, right?
Right.
Like when
you count in that, by the way, taxes is dealing with money.
Exactly. When I think about the clients that I've had that have stayed with me, in this particular business, we've been in operation about 6 years. So the ones that have been with me from the very beginning, they know I'm going to get their stuff done on time. They know I'm thinking about them. They know I'm ethical. They know that I'm, enrolled with the IRS so that I am up on all the laws. They know I'm going to save every penny I can. They know I'm honest, right? They would not know that if they just signed up with me yesterday and they're behind on their stuff. They won't know that. So to me, I think if you can, when you're young, just you could have a father or an uncle or a family friend that you know is really successful and intelligent, and you know them. They've been vetted by your family. You have those people to advise you, right? But you also, in the different areas, accounting, wealth management, lawyers, all the things as you go through your life, you don't want to find somebody at the last minute. Find somebody and start to build a relationship with them. Give them a little bit of your stuff in the beginning. See how they do. Do they keep their word? Do they show up? Are they honest? And then build that relationship over time.
That's great advice. That may be the best I've heard. Is don't think of it as some event where you wait for the emergency situation, but think of it as how do you build those 10 or 15 people kind of around you that wins because you know it's going to come. You then can reach out and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Whether you hire them or don't hire them, at least you have people that you can get some input from.
I think in this environment, in this world, the way we've turned out, I used to just admire people who would say, "Oh, my lawyer and I are going out to dinner tonight," or "Oh, I've known my CPA forever and our kids, whatever." I would think to myself, that's somebody they can really trust. They've built a relationship. I want to do that in my life. But today, everybody's more like, I don't even want to talk to anybody. Everything's text or whatever.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Relationships make all the difference. If you have a CPA or a wealth manager, anybody, it's just our natural way of being as human beings. The person you've built a connection with, you're going to be a little more obligated to do a better job. I just believe that's just fact.
Yep, I agree. Is there anything you want to kind of finish on as we go into, and then how do people get in contact with you?
Yep. Well, our website is JC Castle Accounting, www.jc. I think you have it, the link to it. We specialize in startups, consulting for startups, small business bookkeeping and tax. I told you before, we call ourselves the no judgment zone. Bring your mess. We clean it up and we clean it up fast. I get so many people come to us, for 6 months, they've been waiting, for 3 months, for some people longer. We are very efficient at what we do. And I just have a heart for entrepreneurs. I love to hear their business ideas, what they turn to business. Some of the craziest things, people have come to me and I'm thinking to myself, this is never going to fly. And then they make this huge business out of it. And I love it. So that's what we love to do.
And it doesn't matter where they're at because we can do it via Zoom, via email, etc. So it's not like you have to be in Southwest Florida. You can be anywhere.
No, we're actually in, I think, like 48 states serving.
That's fantastic.
Have been the whole time. And, people are totally comfortable with, we use Google Meet and phone calls and text and email. Any way they need to get a hold of us, we're available to them.
Awesome. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and having this chat and helping people make better financial decisions, which is what PlanAssist is all about. It's about really helping people kind of think through their financial decisions and do it in a more disciplined, focused manner. And so this was very helpful. I appreciate your input and suggestions.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candace.